Good morning. This is a virtual PBX dash admin training. And just making sure the audio is working properly here. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started since it's 10 o'clock. On the page here, you see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. If you're actually on the virtualpbx.com website, if you mouse over the support link at the top, you'll have a bunch of other links to choose from, and one of those is the dash login page. In general, I do recommend just bookmarking this page, as you'll probably need it in the future at some point. To get logged in, we first need your username. That is typically their email address you used to sign up with us, or your admin used to create your user. And then we'll need your password, which should have been sent to you via email. And then we need the account name. This is typically your company name. Could be your own name if you set up your own personal account. And then you would click sign in. Now, if for some reason you don't have any information, or you keep getting the invalid credentials error, if you click down here towards the bottom right, you forgot your info link. If you click there, we still need your email address or your username. And then we need one of these two pieces of information, right? Either one. We need either the account name, right? So company name, or a phone number on the account, right? So like phone number your customers call to contact your business, right? You would click on the reset password. The system will send you an email, and there'll be a link in that email that logs you into your Dash account. Now, it will then prompt you to create a new password. Once you've created that password, it's going to log you back out, and then basically gives you a chance to click on the Remember Me box, and then you can log in. Now here, I'm using a test account that's been around for 5-6 years now, so it takes me right to the dashboard page. If this is your first time logging into your Dash account, you actually get taken to your account page, which I can get to by clicking up here on my name. And you see here, I can change my own email address, so I change my username, right? I can change my own password, adjust my time zone, as well as the date and format of the date and time. Since I'm an admin, I also have this account setting over here at the top left. So I can change, for example, the time zone for the entire account, right? So instead of being based in LA, I could change it and say, hey, we're based in Chicago. Now, this, as I said, this is a test account. So on your account, you actually have another section below where it says user for your billing information. This is where you would update your credit card information. You could, input your billing contact information, right, the overall owner of the account. And you can see things like your service plan and previous invoices. Now, this first time you log in, the Dash Wizard pops up to give you highlights about what certain things are and what you can change. When you're done with that, you just click close over here to the top right, and that will take you back to the dashboard page. All right, so at the top here, again, you can always click on your name, and that will take you to that account page. For many of you, you'll have another icon here that says DND, for Do Not Disturb, or Do Not Disturb, excuse me. If it's white, that means it's been enabled, right? So that means calls aren't going to get to you, right? If it's basically black with a little white outline, then you're getting calls normally. The reason I do not have it here is because I am also an agent in an ACD queue. So for any of your staff members that you assign to be in an ACD queue, they will not have the D&D toggle at the top. Next up, we got the little question mark icon, little sub-menu here. Chat with us. This opens up a chat window to contact our support team. Right, so they can help you with a particular feature you're working with. Over here is Learn More. This will open up a new tab and take you to the support pages. So then you can look up a guide or even video of a particular feature. Then we've got the online store. All right, this takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you can order things like a VoIP phone or a router. There is a blank spot here. This will be populated if you add a web phone to your user. That will be a link then for the web phone. This would open up a new tab that goes to webphone.virtualpbx.net. And that allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a desktop or laptop computer to make and receive calls. Next up, we got the 3 horizontal line icon, or the hamburger icon, menu icon. So we're on the dashboard here. These are other features of Dash. Some of them, well, actually a lot of them are here on the right-hand side, have fees or are plan-specific features. So I'll make sure to highlight that as we go through. And then we have the logout icon up here at the top right. On the left, we have other core features of Dash, which we'll be going through shortly. And here in the middle, we've got total users. These are all the people who make and receive calls on your account. If you're on a user-based plan, adding users will increase your bill. How much will depend on your plan. If you don't recall, or let's say you were just handed the keys and you don't know, because you're not the person who signed up or set this up initially, you're going to want to contact our account services team. They can verify your pricing and any kind of overages that may occur for anything else. Next up, we have total devices. I have 51. And first up here, we got a breakdown of the device types. So soft phone, this is a software application that runs on a computer typically, but it could be on a tablet or even a cell phone that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? VoIP, right? VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Soft phone is a kind of VoIP phone. Now this can include the VirtualPBX soft phone app. This can be for an app from another company, like Counterpath is another company. They have several different soft phone apps in the world. You could be using one of theirs. This can also denote a physical VoIP phone that you had to program manually. All right, cell phone, that's pretty self-explanatory. I've got 14 of them here. The web phone, which I just mentioned a little while ago, again, technically the web phone is a kind of soft phone. This was developed later, so it's part of why it has its own labeling. Then we have SIP phone. So SIP is a kind of VoIP phone. This is a physical phone. It sits on a desk typically, or yeah, like a cordless handset you use. There are other kinds of VoIP phones on the market, right? So VoIP is the general term. SIP is a particular type of VoIP phone that's on the market. So if you're shopping around, you want to make sure that any phone you buy to work with us is at least SIP compliant or SIP compatible. So then you have a chance. When we get to adding the devices, we'll go through the supported devices, which support auto provisioning. Down here we have landline. That's pretty self-explanatory. Then you see I have unregistered devices, and it looks like I have 24 of them. So Dash will know if a VoIP phone is connected to it properly, right? That means if it's connected to it properly, that means it's registered, right? So an unregistered phone means the Dash cannot send a call to that device. This could be something as simple as someone hasn't logged into their soft phone, right? Or cable isn't plugged in properly. Could be more complicated in terms of there could be a router setting involved or a network issue of some type. Next up, we have total numbers. I have 32. And then we have a breakdown here. Now, your account includes anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Once you go over that, you're going to be paying per phone number per month. That's good. Right now, I believe that ranges between $1.99 per number per month up to, I believe, $4.99. Again, that's something you'd want to verify with account services. So no matter what, I'm paying an overage because I have 32 phone numbers. And then we have this breakdown here of assigned numbers, which is 30, and spare numbers, which is 2. An assigned number means I'm using it, right? So it's one of these main numbers over here to the right. The conference number, the fax box number. It could also be a number that I have going directly to one of my staff members, or to a ring group, or to an ACD queue, etc. Spare number, still on my account, so it still counts towards my allotment. I'm just not currently using it, right? That could be I just unassigned a number because, you know, my colleague Mary had to give her notice, and you know, to explore new opportunity, right? So I'm like, well, she doesn't need her own phone number on the account anymore, so I can unassign that and I can reuse that later. Likewise, it could be you got a block of 10 numbers that were in sequence and you just haven't gotten to some of them yet. All right, this other breakdown, US DID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. US DID, that just means a US local number, right? So you can have a number, say, in Los Gatos, California, or a number in Elmira, New York, or anywhere in between. You can have an international phone number on your account, or many if you want. If you're interested in acquiring an international number, you will need to email our porting team, and that's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. It will vary from country to country in terms of what is required. Some don't care. We can just say, yes, we can get you the number, here you go. Others, there's paperwork involved, right? They want proof of presence or proof of incorporation or what have you. It's going to vary. Once we know the city and country, we verify what's required. Then our porting team will let you know. And once we get that information from you, then we can acquire the phone number. Down here, we've got conference bridges. I have 8 of them. That means I have enabled the conference bridge feature on 8 of my users, meaning they can host or moderate a conference. And I can only do that after I've made a conference number. Over here to the right, this first block of numbers, these are my main numbers. These numbers behave in the same fashion. They go to the same place. They have the same main greeting. Right. Then I got my conference number. I can have multiple conference numbers if I'm so inclined. But basically, everyone who's going to join a conference needs to dial this phone number, whether they're among your staff members or they're outside your business. Right. Then the fax box number, this enables faxing on the account. This is your inbound fax number. The company directory, this downloads a text file, so then you can see all your users' names and their extension numbers. The cell phone directory, this downloads a file for use with the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone application. So you download this file, you upload it to the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone, and then you'll be able to see the status of the other soft phone users in your organization. Right? So I could look at my cell phone right now and see, oh, my coworker Mike is not on a call, so I can give him a call so we can talk about a customer issue that we were working with. This is not currently available on the mobile version of the app, but that is something that is being worked on. The store discount code, cannot talk today. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our online store. So something to be aware of. And then lastly here, we've got the account realm. This is used in a couple of things. So first, it's used for programming a third-party soft phone, right? So say something you got an application from Counterpath, also for a VoIP phone that doesn't support auto provisioning. It's one of the 3 key pieces of information you need to program that application or device. The other thing the account realm is typically used for is for faxing out. On Dash, currently, faxing out is email to fax. So you create an email, right? You use the email address you use for login to send the email. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, @ and then your account realm. And then after that, you just simply attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send. You don't need to type in the subject line or the body of the email. Our system doesn't look at that. Right? It looks at the to field to know which number it's sending to and which account it's coming from, and then it grabs the first attachment it sees and tries to convert that into an analog signal to send out. That means you can only send out 1 fax per email, so 1 document, and just make sure you don't have any other attachments like a signature file in your email, because that can cause a fax error. All right, up here towards the top, we've got the caller ID. This is the main company caller ID, or the default company caller ID. This pull down would show all of your main numbers that you can pick from. And then here, you've got the company caller ID name. So you have 15 characters, including spaces and special characters to choose from. Once you click on Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME, right, the company caller ID name. It takes them about 3 business days to update. Right? It's going to vary because it goes through several different companies. They have their own processes for that. That is what's referred to as provisioning your company caller ID name. That's what we can control. When you make an outbound call from a VoIP phone, right, we send this phone number, and then we'll send this Tandoori as part of your caller ID information, right? It goes over the various networks. Now, if your call happens to route through a carrier that doesn't support CNAME, your CNAME information does not make it to the destination, right? In terms of when a call is received, that carrier that the receiving device is on has ultimate control about what shows up on those phones' display, right? So if they choose not to send our information, we can't force them to, whether that's because they don't support CNAME, or for like in the case of cell phone carriers, it's often a paid service, right? So like I have an AT&T cell phone. If I want company caller ID information to show up for calls that come into my cell phone, I have to pay them, I think it's an extra $10 a month, right? I don't typically care about that, so I don't pay for it on my personal cell phone, but that's something to be aware of. All right, down here we have the company emergency information, E911. This is an address you want to put that matches this phone number. Right, so each phone number, you can have its own E911 information, and that means for your VoIP phones, you can determine which phone they use for E911. Right, so that way, people are working. A lot more people are working remotely now, so you want to make sure that this E911 information is appropriate for the location your staff members are at. So when you're done here, you click on Save Changes. And so basically, once I clicked on Save Changes and it's done loading my caller company ID name, right, that just went out to get updated among all the carriers who support CNAME. Next up, we got hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own hold music file. Dash will play back .mp3 files, .wav, .wav, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono and not in stereo, because most phones, when you talk over the phone, only have one speaker. So mono oral device. Also, that will save you file size space, because right now you're currently limited to 1 megabyte in size. A 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. Now this file will only play once a call has reached one of your staff members. Your staff members accepted the call, and then they press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when the hold music will play. So if you upload a file, you want to browse on your computer to find that MP3 or .wav or OGG file, and then you click this blue and white up arrow icon. The system will upload it, give you a little progress bar, and then you would click on Save Changes. All right, hours is actually part of main number, and so instead of skipping around in main number, just go to main number directly and work our way down. Main number page does take a little while to load, and that's because there's a lot going on. All right, so first up, we have main company numbers. So these are your main numbers, right? So your customers would call these numbers to access your system, right? To hopefully speak to you and we can make sales. If for some reason you no longer want to use a number in this capacity, right? So you don't want it to be a main number, you would just click unassign in front of it. Now, you still have that number on your account, right? It's now a spare number. It's just no longer a main number. If you need to add more main numbers, you have this first option here is add from spare numbers. So these are numbers that are already on your account. So you can simply reassign them to make them be a main number. Or let's say you're expanding your business, you're going into a new region. So you say, well, let's get a local number for where we're going. And then you would just need to search the area code. So let's go with 650. And then you'll see the available numbers. You can scroll down to see some more. and then you would add a number you like just by clicking add. It moves it over to your cart. You have the number here, and then you have the option to send it back if you decide to change your mind. You can add multiple numbers from the same area code at the same time. So you could, I could add like 5 of these if I wanted to, and then you just click on Buy Number. Now this is the system verifying that number was still truly available, and then adding it and activating it to your account. And you see now it's here. It's a main number already, so I don't need to do any other things in terms of someone can dial this number right now and get to my company. Over here to the right, phone number has a little gear icon, so I can set up the caller ID for this phone number, right? So I can set up the CNAME for the outbound. I can also turn on the ability to have inbound CNAME information get transmitted to my staff members on their phones. E911. So here I can add an address that's specific to this 650 phone number that I just added. Right, prepend is a VoIP feature. Basically, I can add text in front of the caller ID information, and this will show up on my staff members' VoIP phones. Right, gives them a heads up about what the call is about. Toll-free numbers are a little easier in terms of you just pick the toll-free prefix you want to work with, you click on search, and then you see what's available. Same process, you would buy a number, etc. Now, every now and then you can enter in an area code. Let's see, 310. Like you get this, right? Sorry, we couldn't find any available numbers. This will happen with older area codes, right? So, little history: area codes were first developed in 1947, and there are 40 some odd original area codes. Most of those are exhausted because most of those are in major metropolitan areas, like New York. And then, so for a lot of those areas, they'll have multiple area codes referred to as overlays, right? Which is why like 310 is the original Los Angeles area code. There are other area codes for the rest, for LA, right? New York encounters that, etc. So if you don't find a phone number in the first area code you look for, double check to see what other overlays exist, and then you can do a search for those other area codes, and then add the numbers as appropriate. Right, so once you have numbers, then you have office hour strategy. For new accounts, you start off at 24-hour open office, meaning your system is ready to take and open to take calls. Right? A lot of people do custom office hours, and then what you do is for each day of the week, you put a check mark in front of the day that you're open, and then you set your open hours in 24-hour or military time in these boxes here to the right. You also have the option at the bottom to say if you're closed for lunch, right? So you put a check mark in front of that, and then indicate your lunch hours in that same 24-hour time, and then you would click on Save Changes. So then we have office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, you put a check mark saying that you are. And then over here to the right is where you add your holidays. You've got single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of those creates a new row. So single day, like I have here for President's Day, you give it a name, and then you choose the month and date. All right, and then you click on Save Changes. Date range, it's like up here for Christmas. You give it a start date and an end date, click on Save Changes. Now, date range, actually for all of these, notice that there's no year indicator. So for date range, you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, because the system then just puts you in after hours mode all year. So just do those individually, like we have right here and here. All right, for advanced, that's like this retreat example here. You get, again, give it a name, and then you choose a month, this case July. This column, it's first through 5th as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? So in this case, first Friday in July, we're on holiday, it's company picnic day. And then when you're done, click on Save Changes. Now, one thing to keep in mind is for holidays where the date may change from year to year, so you will need to go in afterwards and change the date after that holiday has passed. You, again, just verify that you're not putting yourself in holiday mode on back-to-back days by accident. All right, incoming call handling. This is how the system is handling calls that come in on your main numbers, right? So these 4 numbers I have up here, this is where I determine how calls are being handled. Notice I have tabs here, right? So I have open hours, I have my after hours, I have my holidays, right? If I chose to be closed for lunch, I'd also have a lunch tab up here as well. But if you notice, the same basic options exist among these various times of day. So first up here, call comes in and it's going to my virtual receptionist. If you click on the virtual receptionist, this is a link. And you see here on the left is the main menu, right? So this is what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. If you click on Add Route, you can add additional routes. Unfortunately, the pull down isn't working here, but you have 0 through 9 as well as the star key and the default route. And then you tell the system where is this going to go. Right, so if we go up here, we can get a better sampling here. So Smart PBX directory, that's the dial by name directory. Users, you can send a call to a specific user, right? So pressing 1, I can send it here to Jade or to Jay, etc. If I scroll down, I can send it to a call queue. This is an ACD queue. Call queues, by the way, do have a fee associated with them. That depends on your plan. Standard queues are $15, start at $15, I believe. There's also pro queues, which are $99. Devices, you can send it to a specific phone. We don't generally recommend this just because if someone doesn't pick up and there's no voicemail, or there's no voicemail, right, the call can simply just end. Let's go down a little bit further here. Okay, then you have a media file. This would be just, you have a greeting play. However, once the greeting is done playing, so whenever that file stops, then the call ends. Groups, these are departments. These are similar to ACD queues, but with less routing options. These are included in your Dash account. Advanced call flows, this is if you're making use of said menuing, right? So like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Those 2 options send you to another greeting file that plays as well as another set of menu options. And then you can send calls to a specific voicemail box. Over here to the right, you've got your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech. You have 250 to 350 characters to choose from, or to make use of, I guess I should say. Sorry about that. One thing to keep in mind is once you click Update and then Save down here and Save Changes, the system will save it, the text-to-speech file as, like in this case, the main menu open hours menu TTS. That's the file name it uses for every text-to-speech greeting you have, right? So if I come back in here at a later date and I add a couple more lines, a couple words, right? I click Update, Save, and Save Changes. Now I don't have 2 files with that file name main open hours menu TTS. So what I recommend is after you create a text-to-speech greeting, go to your Greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, change the file name so it's something you'll recognize later, right? So in case you want to go back to it, or you just have different edits. Text-to-speech is great if you're a startup business, right? So you're not exactly sure how you're going to have everything route, or if you've never used a PBX system, because again, you're just getting used to how PBX systems work in general, and also because they're free. Next up, you have the option to upload your own file. You just find the file on your computer. Again, .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You just click update and then save changes. You can choose from an existing recording. This is a pull down. It will show all your various recordings, whether it's a voicemail greeting, a main greeting, what have you. Again, that's why it's important to be able to change it, because you see here I have a main open hours TTS. I don't know what it actually says at this point until I listen to it. Yeah, recorded over the phone. Now, the system says pick up a phone registered to this account. By default, this means a VoIP phone on your account. Also by default, so it's currently set. So basically what it means is I pick up VoIP phone, I call my main number. If this is a brand new account, so I don't have anything set up, the system will tell me no greeting has been set up for this menu, and then prompt me to enter in a PIN number. Now this PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So I'm in my open hours, so it only works during my open hours, meaning I can only change my main greeting over the phone during my open hours, right? So if I want to change my open hours greeting, I have to do it during open hours. If I want to change my after hours greeting, I have to call in after hours, or set the system into after hours. Now, if I don't want to use a VoIP phone, or I have a friend with a great radio kind of voice, I can go down under settings here and turn allow outside recording, right? Turn this to on. Now I can call in with a cell phone or a landline and enter in that PIN number and record over the phone. The other thing about recording over the phone is once you have a file in place, right? So greeting A is playing normally, and if I call in, I enter this PIN number, it will still let me record over the phone, right? It'll still walk me through it. It's going to overwrite the contents of greeting A, right? So file name, greeting A, stays the same, content gets overwritten. So if you have a standard main greeting that you use for most of the year, right? You flip back to it basically for holidays or special promotions. You probably want to make sure that's not the file that you're calling into to record over the phone, right? Switch it to something else and then record it. Professional recording services. When you click order, this will take you to another website hosted by Snap Recordings. They have about 100 actors and actresses to choose from. They also have different versions of English, like UK English or Australian English, as well as French and Spanish. So you can do a multilingual greeting. They also have what they refer to as hold treatment. So it's a mix of a media file and then a greeting, right, or script being read. They handle their own billing, typically via credit card. They deliver to you, typically via email, and then you would just upload your own file. All right, settings. So the first one here, number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So they call in, they hear your greeting, and they press 7, right? Not a valid option. The system says invalid entry. It will repeat the greeting, right? So then they enter, 338. Well, that's not and that ends up not being an actual extension number, for example. System says invalid entry, plays their greeting again, and then they hit 5, for example, and then they'll get sent to this support group. Right now, that third time, if they hit 7 again, the system would say invalid entry, and in this case, since I have a default route here right now, it will send it to the smart director, so then the person can try to dial by name. Now, if I remove a route, I click the little X to the right, and they failed 3 failed attempts, then the system would simply end the call. All right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes that the inbound caller is done, right? So caller comes in and press 7. The system waits to a count of 10 and says, oh, you're done, invalid entry. Likewise, if they called in and pressed 5, the system will still wait at 10 seconds and then send it to that group. Right? I normally recommend people take it down to like 3, give or take, because you still have that whole time of the greeting to react, right? And then you're either entering an extension number or one of your main menu options. All right, allow outside recording, we already covered. That's for the main greeting to record with a cell phone or a landline. So then we have allow dialing extensions. If this is off, when your caller comes in, they can only press your main menu options. Right, so even if they know the extension, they're not getting there. Right, so if you turn this on, then if they know the extension number, they can enter it, and then the call will get sent to them. And then we have suppress playing of invalid entry. So by default, when someone presses an invalid option, the system gives them a message saying you've hit an invalid entry. If you don't want that message to play, then you just turn this on. That means when they put in an invalid entry, the system will just basically not tell them anything, but then the greeting will play back again, so then they can enter in another option. Now, anytime you make a change under the main menu, the greetings, or the settings, or all three, you need to click Save here at the bottom. You also need to click Save Changes here under Incoming Call Handling. All right, next up here, this is what's referred to as the live operator answer, or live operator option, excuse me. So call comes in, we're offering it to Aaron. If Aaron isn't able to pick up, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Now we're under open hours, so this is the same virtual receptionist that we were just looking at. But let's say, for instance, we go to after hours, right? Still, now in this case, calls are coming in, they're going into an ACD queue, right? For 20 seconds, by the way. And then they would go to the after hours virtual receptionist, where they have these menu options, likely a different greeting, etc. Now, this pull down, right? Again, you've got users, you've got groups, you've got the ACD queues. You can send it to a specific device. You can also go to a media file. I don't recommend that just because it can be confusing to your callers, because they'll basically have two greetings play back to back. But in case you have a lot of information you want to get to your customers, that is an option. But in all cases, these options that you choose, the system will offer the call to them for 20 seconds. After that 20 seconds, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Over here, third option, I'm offering it to Aaron. If Aaron doesn't pick up, it goes to his voicemail box. Same basic options here, right? You can send it to users, to groups, to queues, to devices, a media file, etc. There is one extra option right down here. Skip to voicemail. Right, so basically saying call comes in, send it straight to the voicemail box. That is typically what I see under holidays for a small business, right? Like a one-man show or small family business. It's like, hey, we're closed for Christmas because the whole family's getting together to send calls to the voicemail. This last option here is you're sending calls to a secondary attendant. Usually it can be a secondary business, or it could just be like a temporary, hey, we're doing something different here. This may not show up if you do not have extra attendants or your account doesn't include multiple auto attendants. All right, main conference number. Again, you can add from spare or buy new numbers. So you can have multiple conference numbers if you want. Right, you can always unassign a number if you need to use it for something or you don't want conferencing at all. The custom greeting, if you enable it, it's a text-to-speech greeting, so you can type in what you want it to say, click save, and this text-to-speech greeting will play back. Now, even without a text-to-speech greeting here, right, so you don't enable. Okay, let's go back to disabled. Right, when you call the conference, the system says welcome to the conference, and then will prompt you to enter in the conference room number and the PIN number. But like if you want to say, welcome to, let's say I used Tandoori earlier, right? So welcome to Tandoori conference room. Then enter the conference, please enter the conference room number, etc. Main fax box, again, you can add a number or unassign it. Now, unfortunately on this account, the main fax box is broken. However, on yours, when you click edit fax box, you'll have a pop-up window with two fields. The first field is for the inbound notifications. Basically, fax comes in, that email address will get an email saying, hey, you got a new fax, and there'll be a PDF attachment that they can click on and view the fax. One thing to be aware of, if someone calls your fax box number, right, here's the fax tone, goes, oops, wrong number, and hangs up, that inbound notification email address will get an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Something to be aware of there. The other box, or the other field under the edit fax box, is for the outbound permissions. So you could put a single email address there, but it's really designed for those of you who own your own company domain, right? So you own at abccleaners.com. All your staff members have an email address that ends that way. You can put that abccleaners.com domain in that second field, click on save. Then any of your staff members, right, who have an email address that ends at abccleaners.com, they can send a fax out without being a user on your Dash account, right? So intern Dylan, hey, they can send faxes out and they don't have to be a user on your account. All right, auto attendance. So this is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans and not other plans. If this ends up being something you're interested in, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. Multiple auto attendance. There's a couple use cases for this. The one that we mostly encounter is for customers who want to have multiple small businesses, right? So that each business has its own phone number, its own main greeting, but the calls get routed to the same staff people. The other instance, as I actually already mentioned, is submenuing, right? The one for English, two for Spanish. I could create attendants, an English attendant and a Spanish attendant, and create a submenu, right? So they have its own menu options and its own greetings. So up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number. And this is mostly for your staff members, right? Literally, let's say you have a dog walking business and a cleaning business. Someone calls your dog walking business, and for whatever reasons, and then they need to, oh wait, I need to talk to you, blah, blah, cleaning company. Your staff member could literally transfer them to this extension number, and that caller would go hear the main greeting then for the cleaning business, and then they can, select the right menu option. Once you've created a greeting, an attendant, if you click on the name of the attendant, you have this option here, available in main menu. If you click on that, now you can say it's available in main menu, otherwise it's unavailable in main menu. I may have misspoke earlier, I apologize. So when it's unavailable in main menu, this is a standalone attendant, right? So typically probably going to be a separate business or separate entity. Whereas if it's available in main menu, right, this is a submenu option, right? So this will be available to be under your virtual receptionist or under any of these other attendants as a button that your inbound callers can press to get to. Again, for your standalone attendants, you're most likely going to have its own phone number. Right, you do have a little gear icon here, so you can adjust the caller ID and E911. The extension box, you can add multiple extensions or change the extension by unassigning it and then creating a new one. And then you got the little wrench icon here under settings. Now, notice here I have open hours, after hours, and holidays. Your secondary attendants are going to follow your open hours and holidays, etc., that you set up under main number, right? So they all have to have the same hours of operation. If for some reason you have multiple businesses, but some are open 7 days a week and others are only 5 days a week, that's either going to require custom work, which might require a one-time setup fee, or you might need to have separate accounts. You're going to want to talk to our account services team to see which one actually makes the most sense for you. Likewise, for these attendants, you only have the option to send callers to the virtual receptionist. Right? You don't have the live operator answer or the send them to a person, then to a voicemail box. It's only the virtual receptionist. But again, you have these add routes, so you can have the menu options. They can have their own greetings and their own settings. Devices. So this shows all your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to this device. Red means it's unregistered, so we can't send calls to the device. Right, so this would be one of those that shows up as unregistered under the dashboard. And then black is you turned it off, at least on the dashboard. Up here at the top, that's where you add devices. First up, we have SIP phone. This is that physical VoIP phone that sits on your desk or on the wall or what have you. Now, these are the manufacturers that support what is referred to as auto provisioning. Now, when you click on the particular manufacturers, you'll see the various models that they have or that support it. Go back up here. Like Yealink has a lot, but like H-Tech here and Polycom has quite a few. But like Obahai only has a few. H-Tech and Grandstein also don't have a huge amount. And Cisco is pretty much in the middle. But you find the model number of the model number that you want to work on for your manufacturer. You give it a name, right? So you can say Bob's phone, and then you enter in the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone. Often a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you could get under the basic menu, basic settings under the menu, typically, and there'll be a section called MAC, and that's the information you would put here. You would click on Create Device, and then you'd want to assign that device to a user. Now, within the dashboard here, you're done. You're not done with the phone. So on the phone, you need to access the phone's web user interface, the web UI. You need to enter in a URL for that phone to tell hey, go to this website, get your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our dash support pages. On the right-hand side, about a third of the way down under VoIP phones, there's a document called Auto Provisioning Phones. You're going to want to open that up, go to your specific manufacturer. You'll see screenshots of where you need to go, this proper syntax for that URL, as well as verify a couple other settings, typically for most of the manufacturers. So use that document alongside having the web UI open for your phone. Once you do that, the phone basically goes to that URL, gets its config file. It's going to reboot a couple times, and then it should show up as a green device on your account. All right, cell phone and landline are basically the same. You give it a name, then you put +1 area code and phone number, click on Create Device. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or a landline, right, this is one I set up a while ago under Advanced Options. This is what it looks like. So what happens? Call comes in, gets offered to your cell phone rings, you pick up, and then you'll hear the system say, "This is a forwarded call, please press 1." When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. So it hears that one tone, it connects the call to you, you begin calling to that inbound caller. That doesn't work in every situation. For instance, let's say this was actually going to my after-hours answering service. Right? It's an automated answering service, so there's not someone there pressing 1. Right? It just goes to them, it has a greeting, and then it routes. So in that kind of instance, I would want to put a check mark here in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. What that really means is when we send a call to this phone number and we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. We're not waiting for anyone to press 1, right? So in terms of sending it to an automated answering service, picks up, we connect the call, your answering service handles the call from that point forward. If this is actually going to your cell phone and you have it set up this way, if you don't answer the call on your cell phone, but your cell phone voicemail picks up, again, we treat that like a connected call, so the inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people definitely want that. Some people definitely do not. That's a personal preference. But that's where that setting is. The next one that comes up sometimes is this one here, keep original caller ID. So say call comes in, say customer Mary is calling into your system, gets to your cell phone, and on your cell phone's display you see a phone number. You're like, I don't know that number. It's probably that, auto warranty spam, robocaller thing again. So you just let it go. You're like, oh, go to voicemail. If it's legit, I'll call them back. Now, if you uncheck this, when customer Mary calls you, it's your main number that shows up on your cell phone. Right? So if we go back to the dashboard, what I mean by that is this caller ID phone number. This is the phone number that shows up on your cell phone. So now you know, I'm assuming if you recognize your own business's phone number, like, oh, this is a work call. At least worthwhile to consider picking up. It's not automatically going to be a robodialer. All right, soft phone. So on the devices page, if you add a soft phone, the system only allows you to add a third-party soft phone. Right, so you're using a soft phone from Counterpath, or your VoIP phone didn't show up under that SIP phone list. So you would give it a name. You need to copy and paste the SIP username here. If you click on the SIP password box here, you're going to want to copy and paste that, and then the account realm. Those are the 3 key pieces of information you would need to program your soft phone application. We have a couple guides for a couple soft phones on the market. I think there's like 4 or 5 different soft phones that we have guides for, and hopefully that's enough to get you through setting that up. You can also add the web phone here. However, the web phone, in terms of logging into the web phone, that uses your dash login information. So even though you create it here, it's not ready to use until you assign it to a staff member. So I usually recommend creating the web phone directly on the user, which we'll get to in a little bit. All right, greetings. This is your greetings manager. Shows your various greetings on the account. You've got the name of the file itself. All right, up here. Then you got the source. So upload means you uploaded the file, right? TTS, text to speech. And then recording means you recorded over the phone. You have a download link here, so you can download the file and listen to it to make sure it's still relevant. You got a little wrench icon here, so you can change the file name so it's something you recognize, or you can just completely delete it. You see here, this is like one version of the main open hours menu, TTS, even though it looks like nuts at the end. All right, groups, sometimes also referred to as ring groups or hunt groups. If you create a group up at the top here, you just give it a name and an extension number, and you click and drag your staff members who are part of the group, right? So like the whole department for your billing team, for example. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. You can adjust the name, and then you have the group calling attempts. This is how many times the inbound caller is offered to your staff members. Little arrows here to the far right, so you can increase or decrease that. And then you would click on Save Changes. Then if you click on the members box, so here we have what's referred to as blast ringing or ring all. So when a call comes to this group, it's ringing all of my staff members at the same time until one of them picks up. Right. Now, a couple things to keep in mind with groups. If these users have multiple devices, when a call comes into the group and is offered to them, all of their devices ring, right? The group calls do not pay attention to user features in terms of, or group calls don't pay attention to the follow me call feature on the user, which we'll be getting to later. So if Michael has got 4 phones on his user, all 4 of them are going to ring until he picks up or one of the other staff members picks up. Likewise, let's say call comes in, Michael takes the call, he's helping the customer. A second call comes in, he's going to hear a call waiting beep in his ear, the customer won't, until one of these other colleagues picks up the call. Now, up along the top here, these are timestamps. This last one you can edit. The default for a new group is 120 seconds 2 minutes. This one was expanded to 240. Now, let's say you don't want everyone to ring at the same time. You can click distribute. So now it's ringing in this order, right? So Michael to Jan to Aaron, right, to Jean, and then to Brandon. Now, if I don't like this order, let's say Michael has a project I want him to work on, so he should be last in line while he's working on that project. If I click on his name, I can drag him down to the bottom. Now, I haven't actually changed the ring order yet. Right, so let's put Jean up here to the top. I can click distribute again. Now I've changed the ring order. So now it's going to start with Jean, then Jan, etc. Michael's at the end. Basically saying, hey, if everyone's busy, right, then Michael will take the call. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, let me get back to this. These are sliders, right? So you can adjust it so you can have some overlap, for instance. Or something like that. I could do something like this. Put that to the end. Things like that. So you can really adjust it to how you need it in terms of the timing. Just something to keep in mind. Now, if you need to remove someone, right, you click remove over here to the right. And then to the bottom left, this is where you add additional staff members. All right, so we can add Jade here. Hit select. He's instantly added to the beginning. And then I can adjust the slider. Click on Save Changes. So for your calls coming into the group, your users, they can make use of cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. All right, so that's one advantage that a group has. Groups can have extensions, and you can add multiple extensions to a group if you want. Again, that's typically for your staff members to transfer calls to the correct group. Groups can also have their own phone number. Right, you can either add from spare or buy new. Right, got that local or toll-free option. One thing to keep in mind about phone numbers on users or groups, this phone number, or the phone numbers that are associated directly with the user or group, they don't pay attention to your open hours. Right, these numbers are available 24/7, meaning someone calls this number at 2 in the morning, your staff members' phones will ring. Right, not a big deal if it's their cell phone at the office, you know, at the office. But if they're making use of cell phones, right, their own personal cell phones, they can get a call on their cell phone at 2 in the morning. So something to be aware of. All right. Groups have features. The first here is ringback. So if you enable this, you can upload a mp3.wave.ogg file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. This file will play back once the system hears the ringing tone to the devices we're sending it to. Right, so call comes in, going to the group, we start ringing. This is Jade's cell phone, for example. Right, so once the system hears that ringtone coming back to us, then the music file will start playing until Jade picks up. Right, doesn't matter if it's a cell phone or a VoIP phone, as long as we get that ringing tone back to the system, the ringback file will play. The ringback file basically replaces that ringing sound. But we have to have that ringtone come back. If for some reason, let's say call is being sent to someone's cell phone and they're on the line, right? So the call is being sent, or it's going to a landline, let's say, right? So it's being sent and there's no answer, but there's no ringing tone coming back to us for whatever reasons. Let's say we're getting a busy signal, right? The ringback file won't play. So we need to have that ringing sound go through. That's why you can put like a VoIP phone on somebody, on the first person especially, in a group, and that file, ringback file would play. Next action, if you enable this, if no one answers, what are you going to do with the call? It's a pull down here. So, oops. Let's scroll back up to the top. Right, you can send it back to your main menu, right, the virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other attendants. You can send it to an ACD queue if you have them. You can send it to a specific phone, right, specific device. Scroll down. You can send it to another ring group. You can send it to a specific user, or you can send it to a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding. Right? So i.e. they're not at their normal phone, they can then choose to have the system forward calls to a secondary device or backup device. Caller ID prepend, if you enable this, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on the VoIP phone's display. Just give your staff members an idea of what the call is about. Numbers. This will show you your numbers on the account and where they go. Right, you got the little gear icon here next to any of the numbers, so you can adjust the caller ID, the E91, and the prepend. Now you cannot unassign a number here. Right, you have to go to the actual location to unassign a number. Spare numbers. These are numbers that you're not using. If you want to get rid of a number, right? So you got too many phone numbers, you want to reduce your bill. What you do is you go to your spare numbers, you click on the box in front of it, put a check mark, and now I've got this option to delete. So then I click on delete. So are you sure? So I confirm the deletion, and now that number is removed from my account. So I just saved a little bit of money. Up here, you got the option to buy, right? So you can add local or toll-free numbers. This will automatically put them as a spare number. So then you assign them later. And then you have the option to port. So port is a telecom industry term to mean move a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So you can move it from, say, AT&T to VirtualPBX or T-Mobile or Comcast, what have you. You click on new port request, you give it a name, you say for the US local or toll-free number, and then you click next. Now the system's asking you to upload a copy of your bill. It will then ask you for the address that's associated on that bill, as well as the phone number that you're porting, or numbers. You will then have the option to download a blank letter of agency, or LOA. We need that filled out and signed, then you would upload it back. Now, for the LOA, it's going to ask you for like your company information, the address, the company name, etc. That information should match what your current carrier has on file. Right? So if you're porting a number, say from AT&T, whatever they have on file for that phone number, right? So that whatever company name, whatever address, the service address, that's what needs to be on the LOA. It does need to be signed. Now that could be you print it out and sign it manually, or you just put in your signature file, paste it in there. Then you upload that document, you submit the port request, and you'll get an email saying, thank you for submitting your port request. Within the next business day, you'll get a second email from our porting team saying, yes, we actually did get your port request. Yes, we're processing it. Here are things to keep in mind about the port process. Typically speaking, porting a toll-free number takes about 3 to 5 business days. Sorry about that. So yeah, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days, assuming there's no issues with the port. Local numbers, anywhere from 1 business day to 2 to 3 weeks. Right? The 1 business day, often it's a Google Voice number. There are some carriers that are very just quick about releasing numbers. So that's something to be aware of. If there's any kind of problem, we get a rejection notice that's relatively generic. Right? It could be address mismatch. If we're lucky, they tell us that the street number is wrong or it's a zip code. Sometimes they don't even say that, right? They just say the address is wrong, and we're like, okay, well, we have to, we then pass that information on to you. Then you would need to confirm with your current carrier what it's supposed to be. I'm trying to think if there's anything else you should know about porting. Oh, so yeah, once we get, so the losing carrier determines when they release the number, right? So if you're porting from AT&T to VirtualPBX, AT&T tells us, hey, the number is going to be released on this day. right? So then we let you know, so you know what to expect. When the port completes, right, we test the number, right, make sure it's working properly, and then we let you know your port has completed, and we typically assign it as a main number to start. All right. Users. So this is the user page. Person with the blue suit icon, that's a system admin, meaning they can do all of the things we're doing right now. Right? A great person icon, that's just your standard users. If you click on add user up here at the top, you enter their first and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. Right? So I could not reuse support@virtualpbx.com for 5 different users. I would need to have different email address for each one of them. Then you create a password for that person, and then the extension number. Now, I started this system on extension 1000, so the system is telling me, right, hey, the next available in that sequence is 1021. I can change this, right? I can make it 5210 or whatever. All right, then create a voicemail box for the user. When you create the user, this voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I create the user and then I add a Yealink phone to them. Right? That person can then pick up their Yealink phone, hit *98. Right? It's a feature code for voicemail. This will automatically log them into that voicemail box I just created for them. The system will then prompt them to create a PIN number, as well as then create their voicemail greeting. If I choose not to do this, right? If I uncheck this, I can create another voicemail box manually, but I cannot do that same kind of tie-in where they hit *98 to log into it. So that's why that is default or checked by default. Next up, we have include the user in the directory. If you put check mark there, you're including them. You can change your mind later. Right, send emails to an alternate address. If you check mark here, you do need to put another email address. So by default, say a voicemail comes into a user, right? The system will email the email address used for login, right? Saying, hey, you have a voicemail. Here's an MP3 file, you can listen to it. If you put a check mark here, though, for send to an alternate address, we send it to the secondary address, not the email address used for login. The same would apply for a password reset. And then here, which I think is also important, send credentials to the user. So then you create user, the system will send that person an email with their login information. Now, if you need to create multiple users, you create user and add another. All right, so once a user is created, you can click on their name, and you can change their name in these boxes up here, or you can change their credentials. You click on that, you change their email address and their password. You can also send them the password reset email. This is changing the voicemail box PIN. You would need to do this for any of your cell phone or landline users. But again, for their VoIP phone users, if they just log in from *98, then the system will prompt them to create that themselves. Here you have the option to make use of that send to an alternate address, as well as here's the user directory option. You can change your mind. Over here to the right, admin. This is a pull down, so you can make an admin a user or a user into an admin. Next up, we've got the time zone. Right, you just do a search for the city, and you can set so that way each of your users can be in the correct time zone. That's important for like voicemail timestamps. Next up is the display language. Right, so what the web pages display to this user. You have English, French, German, and Russian. You have ringing timeout. So by default, this is set to 20 seconds, right? So calls sent to Aaron here will ring for 20 seconds. 20 seconds is plenty of time for calls to get to a landline or most VoIP phones. If a person is primarily using a cell phone, however, 20 seconds will not always be enough time. For those people, we do recommend setting this to 45 seconds, if not 60. In terms of how PBX systems in general work, right? Calls come into us, then we're sending calls to a user. Right, we look at the types of devices the user is having. So when we send calls to a landline, right, we go send it to the landline telecom. They say, oh, we know exactly where that is. They send the call straight through. That landline starts ringing. Or versus when we send calls to a cell phone, right, send it out to a cell phone provider. They say, hold on a second, we need to find them first, right? Ping cell phone towers, they find you, then they send the call to the cell phone. That delay is why on a PBX system, you need to have more time for the ringing timeout to a cell phone than you do for a landline. Right now, from the cell phone user, right, they don't know that there's this extra time, generally speaking, because they're waiting for the phone to ring, right? Like, oh, the phone rings, they react, they answer. In terms of the system, they need to have that extra timing to make sure they have enough time to get rings, right? Other things to keep in mind about cell phones, right? They can have heavier than expected call volume, right? Actually, any telecom can have that. But for cell phone users, that can delay routing the call to them. You can have, solar flare activity can actually impact cellular calls as well. Haven't heard that too often lately, but it is out there. All right, if you click on the extensions box for a user, you can change their extension number, right? Add a secondary extension if you want to. Users can have their own phone numbers, right? You can add it from spare or buy new. And again, this phone number is available 24/7. Right? It's not going to pay attention to my hours of operation. Devices. You can add devices to a user. So when you click on the device box for a user, you can add from spare devices, or you can click new device. Right? You have the same options as we had under the devices page. Right? So you can add a physical device if you want to. Right? Cell phone, landline. For the soft phone, when you click here, so this, again, defaults you to a third-party soft phone. But if you notice down here at the bottom, it says use third-party application. I can click on that, and now it says use VirtualPBX application. Looks like he already has one. So each email address, the system basically keeps track of how many soft phones a user has. And right now, each email address associated with a user can only have one VirtualPBX soft phone. Let's see if we can do one here. This just means I need to clean up these users and there. So then you just give it a device name. You click Create Device, and then you would click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, this user gets an email with their username and password for the soft phone. They also have download links, so then they can download it to their iPhone or Android phone, or their Windows or Mac PC. And then you would use those credentials to log into the app, and they can make and receive calls. Right. Likewise, I find it easier to add a web phone directly to a user. Because you just do this, give it a name, click on Create Device, and then click on Save Changes. And then now this Jade user, he can log it. They can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net on either Chrome or Firefox on their computer, use their dash login, and then make use of the web phone. Let's go. All right, user features. All right, caller ID number. This is only for users that have their own phone number. When you enable it, you're saying, hey, use this phone number for my outbound caller ID. Right. If I don't enable this, right, so then I'm using the company default caller ID back on the dashboard. Now call forward, off, on, or failover mode. So your users can turn call forwarding on themselves. They can either use a feature code from a VoIP phone, or they can do it via the user portal, which we'll get to later. But basically, when you turn it on, you select either a mobile phone or a desk phone. Then you put +1 area code and phone number. And then do you want the inbound caller to leave a voicemail on that forwarding device? Do you want to only forward direct calls? That means calls that go directly to the user versus for a group. And then keep original caller ID. That means you just see the phone number of the person who's calling you versus a company phone number. And then you, as an admin, if you set this up, you click on Save Changes here, your users would set up Save Changes on the user portal. Now, this forwarding device should not be a device that's already on the user, right? So if this user already had their own personal cell phone as a device on their user, you don't need to set up call forwarding because you're already sending calls to that device, right? So the forwarding device should be something that's not used every day, essentially. Now, failover mode, this is for your VoIP phone users, right? The system can detect when a phone becomes unregistered. When it does, and a call happens to come to this user, and you have failover mode active, the call will automatically be sent to this phone number, so that way your staff member can still take the call. And I apologize for my neighbor's dog. I'm not sure which neighbor that is. But then, yeah. So when your VoIP phone becomes unregistered, it still rings to your staff member's cell phone. They can still handle the call, and then they can double check what's going on with their VoIP phones. Right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Hot desking is a VoIP phone related feature. When you click Enable, you create a hot desk ID. So if, for instance, you're making use of 4-digit extensions, I just say, hey, make it the extension number. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, if you want, you can include a PIN number. That's completely optional. So what this is for a shared office environment where people may be sitting at different VoIP phones or different desks from day to day. So it's Tuesday, I come into the office, I sit at desk number 7, I go to the VoIP phone, I pick it up, I hit *11, that turns on hot desking on that phone. It asks me for my hot desk ID, and then it says calls will now be sent to this device. So now for the rest of my workday, right, any calls that's coming to my user, whether it's I'm in a group or a queue or just someone enters my extension number directly, right, it's going to ring at that phone that I'm sitting in. Right? Then again, at the end of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12, that turns off hot desking, I go home. Next time I come into the office, let's say that's on Friday, someone's already sitting at desk number 7, I wave at Mary, and I go walk on to, say, desk number 22. All right, I sit down, same process, hit *11, enter my hot desk ID, and now calls are coming to me at desk 22. Voicemail box, again, was created when I created the user. Now, this is fairly typical except for the transcribe feature. Transcription is available on some plans, not all, right? Plan-specific feature, but essentially it's the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out for you in the email notification. If that's something you're interested in, you would double check with account services. But for most people, it starts off looking like this, right? So voicemail box is enabled, voicemail to email is enabled. That means the system's going to send the user an email when they get a voicemail. And then here, we have attached voicemail message to the email, meaning there's a .mp3 file. So call comes in, gets to the user voicemail box, right? The person leaves a voicemail. The user gets an email saying, hey, you have a voicemail. Here's some call information, right? The date, the time, caller ID, and there's a MP3 file, right? They can double click on it and listen to it. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full, and additional voicemail messages aren't able to be left. If your staff members are good about cleaning up their voicemail boxes, not a big deal. If for some reason your staff members aren't good about it, or they just not something they think about doing, then what you want to do is click this one here, which is delete messages from the database after sending out the email. Right? So voicemail gets left, system sends an email to the user with the attachment, and then deletes it from the account. Right? So that way the voicemail box doesn't get filled. And then you would click on Save Changes for any changes you make. User fax box, you can set up your users to have their own fax box if you want them to. If you do so, you have the option of using a phone number, right? You can either add a spare number or buy a number. If you buy a new number, you're restricted to only buying one number for the fax box, or you can add a new extension number. If you choose to add an extension number, this is only an inbound fax box, and this user will have trouble faxing out. All right, so let's see if I change it to use an extension number. I'll use 399, select extension. Right, if I click Save Changes, that means when someone wants to fax me, they have to call my main number that goes to virtual receptionist. Then they have to hit 399, and then they click Send Fax, and then it can get to me. So on a physical fax machine, that's probably not that big a deal, right? They can either listen in and then hit 399 at the appropriate time, or many fax machines you could hit phone number ** 399, right? So give it a pause or a comma, depending on the fax machine, right? But for electronics fax services, not all of them may allow you to fax to an extension number, right? They just let you type in a phone number and you hit Send Fax. No option for an extension. Additionally, when you try to fax out, the system will check, do you have a fax box on your user? It says, yes, you do. Okay, these are the settings I use. Right, so you create the email, you have +1 area code and phone number at your account realm, attach PDF, hit send. Well, the system will use your extension number as a caller ID. That's not a valid caller ID, so the fax will fail. If instead you go back and you have a phone number as your fax box number, now, right, that electronic fax services, they can just fax directly to this phone number. It gets to me. No issue, no hassle. Likewise, if I need to send a fax out, the system's going to use the 650 number as my outbound caller ID. It's a full phone number, not an issue. So in general, if you want a fax box on a user, I do recommend making use of a phone number. It just gives you more functionality overall, or less headache later. Conference bridge. If you enable conferencing on a user, the only thing you need to do is set up the PIN number. And then you click on Save Changes. Right? The user can adjust their PIN numbers later on the user portal. Follow Me. Actually, this is not a good user to use, but this is best for users with multiple devices. So when you enable it, this is what it looks like. You have to tell the system what devices you want it to ring, so you unclick or uncheck where it says do not ring, and then you adjust the slider. Now let's go to Jan here, since he's got a couple of devices. All right, so neither one of these is enabled, but if I uncheck, now they're both here. Right, I can adjust sliders. I have my total ring time up here, so I can adjust that if I want to. I can also click distribute, right? I can change the order and click distribute again, etc. Just like we saw in ring groups. And then you would click on Save Changes. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music. Right? You would just click Enable, Upload, .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, click Save Changes. And again, this is after that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. And this will supersede that file that we uploaded under the dashboard. Customize call recording. So when you first enable it, it looks like this. Right, so it's enabled, but you're not actually recording anything because you need to tell the system what kind of calls you're going to record. So inbound internal, coworker Bob called me. Right. Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Outbound internal, that means I called coworker Bob. Right, and then outbound external, that means I called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. Now you do have, your accounts will have a storage capability and limit. That's going to vary by plan. So you're going to want to double check with account services to find out how much storage you have and what kind of overages are involved. You can set up, if you have an AWS account, you can link your Dash account to AWS and then have your storage shifted over to your AW account versus using us. Lastly, you have the feature here for Do Not Disturb, basically saying, hey, I'm not taking calls, send everything to voicemail. Speaking of voicemail boxes. So here you see all the voicemail boxes on the account. The ones that have information all the way across, these are your user voicemail boxes, right? So most of them, they were created when you created the user. These other voicemail boxes, right, they don't have anything in the user field. These were manually created, right? You created them after the fact. And that's why you can, up here at the top, you click Add Voicemail Box. You give it a name, you give it a voicemail box number, and then a PIN number. You click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, whether it's a user or a manually created one, you can click here on the little wrench icon. So now you can access the name of it as well as change the voicemail box number or the PIN number. It's not advisable to change the voicemail box number for your users, but for your standalone ones, that's usually not a big deal. Now, if we go under Advanced, first up is Greeting Media. Right, so this is the media file. This is your default voicemail greeting. Right, so you can upload, right, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. If you go back to basics, right, because you have the voicemail box number and the PIN number, you can call into your system, right, one of your main numbers that rings to the virtual receptionist, hit *97. The system will ask you for the voicemail box number and then the PIN number, and then you can get to, I think it's option 5 is for personal options, and then you can record a voicemail greeting over the phone for any voicemail box. Otherwise, you would upload the file. Now, the temporary file, this is for your out of office, right, your vacation voicemail. So if you have a file selected here, right, click Save Changes, this is the file that will play over the media file. Right? Once you set this back to none, then the default media file will play. Then we have recipients. Now, for your user-created voicemail boxes, right, those already have a built-in recipient, so you don't necessarily have to add recipients to it. For any voicemail box you created on this page, you want to click on Add Recipients and then enter an email address. If you just want to enter one, you just enter it here and then click Save Changes. Otherwise, you can click Add to add multiple people. So once you've added, created a media file and added recipients to a voicemail box, then you can go to Options, and then you can say check mark in front of Already Set Up. Right? So it's all set up, it's ready to go. Now, if you scroll down a bit, again, we have the Delete After Notification option here. You also have the Attach Messages, right? So you definitely want to make sure this one's checked before you check the Delete After Notification. If you have transcription available on your account, then you can choose to transcribe here. You also, also have this Announce Only mode. This is if you want a voicemail box that's just there to give out information, right? Hours of operation, right? Directions. This voicemail box will not take in a message then if you have this checked. In which case you wouldn't need it to have a recipient. You just need a media file. If you click on the little wrench icon, you also have the option to delete a voicemail box if you don't need it any longer. Now, if you delete a user's voicemail box, you can do that. It's not recommended just because if you create a voicemail box up here, you're not able to have it tied the same way like these other ones are. Right? The only way to restore a user's voicemail box is to delete the user and then recreate the user. Advanced routing, this will take you, this is where the feature called Direct Inward System Access is housed, or DISA. What this does, this allows a cell phone or landline user to call into your system, to log in over the phone, and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, it's not their cell phone number that shows up as a caller ID, but your company number. So you would click Enable, and then it automatically generates a PIN number for you. If you click Edit Settings, you can change that PIN number. You also have the option to add an extension number, and then you click on Save Changes. You don't have to add an extension number if you don't want to. If you don't, then you need to make this a menu option under your virtual receptionist or auto attendants, and that would show up under the advanced call flow section. So go to your virtual receptionist, click add route, give it a number option, and then in that second column where you choose where it's going, look for advanced call flows, and you'll see DISA listed there. I usually say just give it an extension number. So now staff member calls in from their cell phone. Goes to your virtual receptionist. They enter this extension number. The system will then prompt them to enter the PIN number. Then they'll hear dial tone, right? So then they can enter the area code and phone number they're trying to reach. And instead of their cell phone being displayed as a caller ID, it's going to be this phone number here that shows up as the outbound caller ID. Now, by default, DISA is not enabled on new accounts. And that's because if someone is able to figure out your PIN number, for example, they can make outbound calls on your account and you may not realize it right away. Right? Most people, in fact, wouldn't know it until they get their next bill. Now, one way to keep track of calls would be under your call logs. And we'll go to this month. So here you see calls like this little green arrow to the right. That's an inbound call that came into the system. Right? And then the little yellow arrow to the left, that's a call that went out from the system. You see this here, Mike used this particular VoIP phone, and then he called this 408 phone number. It lasted 16 seconds. Let's go custom here. Let's see if we can go back a little bit further. I'll put filter. So here I can see, oh, oops, that's one we already looked at. If you scroll down, you'll have the system update more. So here you can see a call came in from VirtualPBX. So this was a test call into the test account. It rang these phones. And then you see originator canceled. That means the inbound caller hung up before anyone could answer. Right? Typically, you'll see normal clearing for most calls, and that means as far as the system is concerned, the call ended normally. Like so. You might sometimes see other things like temporary normal failure, which could just be there is too much call traffic on a particular carrier, or recovery on time or expire, which could be a network-related issue. Now, you can download any of these times, right? So today, right, this week, this month, you have the option to download, and then custom, you can do your custom range. This downloads a CSV file, so you can use your spreadsheet program to sort things, depending on how good you are with spreadsheets. I'm not that good, so I usually don't make use of that. Depending on your call volume, you may want to restrict yourself to going 1 month at a time, maybe less if you have extreme call volume. The call logs you can access going back a year. And unfortunately after that, I believe our engineers can go back an additional 6 months. So if you need to keep extensive call records, you want to make sure you do that, probably on a monthly basis, so that way you don't have to worry about it. Next up, we've got feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these. Basically, just dial pad shortcuts to access different features. Most of them are for VoIP phones. Right, the *97, I believe I mentioned, for accessing voicemail to like record the greeting or whatnot. You can do that from a cell phone or landline, but you have to call into your main number first. Right? But on a VoIP phone, if you hit *97, it will still ask you for the voicemail box number, the PIN number, but that's a way that you could just check other voicemail boxes on your account from your same phone, instead of calling your cell phone and dialing it in each time. Now, the feature codes are also available on our support pages. There's a feature codes doc. There's also a phone commands cheat sheet PDF on our support pages. So it has all the feature codes along with a brief description of what they do or what they're used for. So it's something your staff members would probably find useful. Excuse me. All right, so we've all been here in the dashboard, right? So basically core features. Next up is ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. So that's a call center feature. It's generally, in some ways, more powerful than ring groups. At least there's more routing options. Now, queues are available on some plans and not others. It's an add-on feature, even on the plans that it's part of. Standard queues, again, start around $15 or $30 per month per queue. If you end up being interested in the queues, you're going to want to contact our account services team so they can verify what your pricing would be and or if you need to change plans. Creating a queue, you would just click on Add New Queue. I'm just going to go ahead and go here under an existing queue under the little deer icon here. You give a queue a name, and then a queue can have either a phone number or a extension. Now, don't forget, queues can also be a menu option off of any of your auto attendants or your virtual receptionist. So there are multiple ways to get to a queue. Then we've got the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, this pull down is not working. So most idle means whoever's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call that comes in. For the standard queues, there's also ring all, meaning it brings all the agents at the same time. There's round robin, which means it'll equalize out over time. There is least calls. This means the least amount of connected calls, right? So if Bob has had spoken to 2 customers, Mary has spoken to 5, under least calls, the next call goes to Bob, right? And then there's least offers, which is the combination of missed and completed calls. So in that same scenario for Bob and Mary, let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, right, but only spoke to 2. Mary has been offered 5 calls, but she spoke to all 5. Under least offers, the next call that comes in goes to Mary. Now, let's say that Bob and Mary have been logged in for a couple hours, right? And then we'll say Matthew logs into the queue. Under least calls and least offers, right? Next call that comes in is going to Matthew until he equalizes with one of the other 2. The pro queues do not currently have ring all as a ring option. All right, then we've got hold treatment. All right, you can upload your own file. .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. You can also select from an existing file. On the pro queues, the hold treatment is more granular, I guess is the best way to say it. You can have things like announce the person's wait in line, announce their expected wait time. You can have different media files play, right? So you can have media file 1 play, right? Then have it stop, and then announce their position in line, right? Then media file 2 plays. Right, blah, 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 and then announce their expected wait time, media file 3, etc. All right, queue timeout measured in seconds. All right, this is how much time the inbound caller can wait on hold to be offered to an agent. The queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold, right? So, and this is on top of people who are already speaking to your staff members. Timeout immediately if empty. If I have no staff members logged into my queue and a call comes into that queue, if this is enabled, that call is treated as if it already hit the 60-second timeout. I.e., they're not waiting to hold for when there's no one there. Escalation queue, right? I can send calls to a secondary queue, meaning I'm paying for 2 queues at least, if all my staff members are busy, right? So I have agents logged in, everyone's busy for whatever reasons, send calls to a secondary queue. And then we have the escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 60-second is reached, what am I going to do with the call? All right, pull down menu here. I can have none, which means the call just simply ends. All right, I can send it to one of my other attendants. I can send it to a specific device, right? So a specific phone. I can send it back to the user directory. I can send it to one of my ring groups. I can send it to a media file, so they get to hear some kind of file play, but then once that file is done, the call ends. I can send it to a specific staff member, and I can send it to a voicemail box. Now, one thing to keep in mind is even if you make use of escalation queues, the system tracks what queue the call first came into, and that's the queue information that it uses for the timeout and the escalation call flow after timeout, right? So call comes into this queue first, and I send it to a secondary queue. After 60 seconds, no matter what queue the call was in, that call will be pulled back and sent to this call flow after timeout, after that 60 seconds. All right, then we've got agent behavior. So agent recovery timer. Basically, after an agent is done with a call from the queue, how much time am I allowing before the system offers them a second call from this queue? That could be 0 seconds if you want. In this case, it's 30. Right? So people have time to get a sip of water or finish their notes in your CRM application. Right, force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if a staff member misses a call, the system will automatically put them in away mode until they physically mark themselves available again. And then agent connects timeout, measured in seconds. Default is 20 seconds. So in queues, staff members can only accept calls from a VoIP device. So 20 seconds, typically plenty of time. Right, so that's SIP phone, right, the physical VoIP phone, soft phone, or a web phone. Those are only devices that can accept the calls from in the queue. And then any changes, you would click on Save Changes. If you're creating, you would click on Create Queue. Right. So once you've created queues, right, you over here on the left, you click on Members. So this list of people, and you can see I can expand it if looks like I do need to. I guess the pull now is not working there, but these are all the people I can assign to my queues. It doesn't mean they're assigned to all of my queues, it just means they're the pool available that I can then parse out to my individual queues. If I click on Manage Members up here at the top, now I have two lists. The lists on the left, these are the people I can add to become part of my queue group. Right? Whereas the people on my right, these are the people who are already in my queues. If I want to add people, right, that's just click on their name and then click Add as a Member. And now you got test here got shifted over to the right. So now they're part of my queue group. Once you've added people into your call center members, if you go back to the queues list, you can click on an individual queue. And you see here, I'm already logged into this queue and have been for 7 days. That's not actually recommended. I'm not sure why I didn't log out previously. But on an existing queue, and you click on Agents, this is where you assign your available members to a particular queue, right? And this is, you click and drag them over, and now Jan here, if I click on Save Changes, he becomes one of my potential queue members. Right, that went up from 8 to 9. Likewise, if I click on Managers, once I've added staff members, I can choose one of those agents to become a manager for this particular queue, if I'm so inclined. Now, for your staff members, once they're assigned to a queue, right, and they have a VoIP phone, right, when they log into dash.virtualpbx.com, they'll have ACD queues as an option, and they'll take them here. Now, when they first get in, they'll have to choose to log in, right? So let me get all the way out here. All right. So here you see, okay, no one's logged into this queue. So when an agent first gets in for the beginning of their shift, right, they would click here where it says Begin Session. They click on that, and it's logging me into the queue, and it puts me in away mode initially. Right, so now I can then, and you only need to typically do this once, click on the little phone icon, and I select my VoIP phone that I want it to use. Then click on that to clear it out. Then I would set myself as ready. So when I'm green, that means I'm ready to take a call. So call comes in, it'll ring to me. When it comes to my lunchtime, right, I'll mark myself away. So I'm still in the queue, right, but now calls won't be offered to me. Right, it'd be offered to someone else or go to voicemail, etc. And then at the end of my shift, I click End Session. So when you're in a queue, right? Your staff members will be able to see, or managers will always be able to see everyone. Red, marked away, right? Green means ready. Blue means they're on an inbound call. Yellow means they're on an outbound call or external call. And then gold is they're on wrap-up time. For your pro queues, there is a third icon here for performance. So an admin or a manager can compare several agents to each other in terms of their call traffic and timing, etc. Pro queues also allow managers to eavesdrop on a call. They can whisper, right, to their staff member, as well as barge in and take over a call. And basically, these are only standard queues, but basically what it is there would be, when a staff member is on a call, a manager can click on the little box here, and then they'll have the options to eavesdrop, whisper, or barge. You can also, managers can log other agents out of a queue, like if they suddenly had to leave and weren't able to log out properly. All right, blacklists. This is available on all accounts. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're not allowing to connect to your system. Right, you're blocking particular phone numbers. So you start over here on the right by clicking on Edit Blacklists. You click Add to create a new list, and you would just give it a name, etc. Then you have the first option here, Block Anonymous. That means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, and you turn this on, that means we're blocking the call, right? So basically you're saying, hey, if you want to call me, you have to give me your actual caller ID. Then down here, you put in +1 area code and phone number. Right, so you need the complete caller ID, then you would click Add, and then you would have you can keep adding additional phone numbers until you're done. Once you're done, you click on Save, you go back to Settings, and then you make sure that list is over here on the right, under Selected. Right, so everything under Selected, those are active lists. Right, you would just click Update. And so any phone number that are on any of these three lists, when they try to call any of my VirtualPBX phone numbers, they get a busy tone, right? So they're not connecting. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. So if you end up being interested in this and you don't see it as an option, then you need to talk to our account services team. This allows you to create a couple of rules to change your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So first one is down here at the bottom. Let's click on Edit here. So you'll give it a name, then you choose a phone number that's on your account. Right, so one of your VirtualPBX phone numbers that shows up under the numbers section. And then in this case, I'm setting up a feature code. So for my VoIP phone users, they pick up their phone, they hit *71, area code and phone number that they're calling. And when they do that, it's this 855 number will show up as their caller ID. Right, the other thing you can do up here is instead, my VoIP phone users, when they pick up their phone, they dial a 408 area code phone number. The system will automatically make their caller ID this 408 phone number. Right, so it looks like they're getting a local call. But again, you can only select phone numbers that are on your account. Right, faxes, this is the fax manager. This is included on all accounts. As an admin, you can get to any fax box on your account and see their inbound or outbound fax activity. Right, so you can see, oh, that David sent out a successful fax on this date. This is the phone number it came from. That's the number it went to. Number of pages. I can download the file as well if I need to. You also have the email to fax logs. If there's information here, there'll be a little icon over here on the far right. It looks like a little eyeball. If you click on that, that will give you some additional information about why the fax did not go through. Typically what we see is someone used the wrong email address to send out, right? They use their personal email address versus their company address, or they had a bad attachment. Either sometimes they forgot the attachment, other times they selected a .docx file versus a PDF. Monitor, this is a plan-specific feature, but basically I can see the status of all my staff members. Right now, this starts off on employees, right? So this is the user status. I can also click at the devices so I can see which devices are actually in use. Right, this is on all. I can see who's actually available versus who is busy. Right, up here at the top, it's kind of hard to read, but this is your active inbound calls, so you can see who's actually on a call. And then we have parked calls. Parking is a feature code. If there's anything here, you also see the parking spot number. Number manager, this takes you back to the spare numbers page. Again, you can buy numbers, port, etc. The recording manager, this actually isn't going to do anything on the streaming software here. If you have AWS storage, it will show, or AWS storage linked, it will show you what's there, and so you can listen to the files. Otherwise, it will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. That page does require you to use your dash login to log in, and then you can listen to your recorded calls. You can sort by date, or you can do a search by phone number. Reports is advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature. It allows you to create your own reports that are much more detailed than in the call logs. We do have a demo on actually this YouTube channel under the videos. It should be called Advanced Reporting if I recall correctly. It's like 5-7 minutes long. So it will show you some of what you can do. If that's something you're interested in, you do need to contact our account services team. Voicemails, this is the voicemail manager. This is available on all accounts. So you can get to any user's voicemail box. You can see what voicemails I have, the date and the time that the call came in, who the call came from, and the phone number, what phone number was dialed, the duration. You can play it back, you can download it, and get some more details. As an admin, if you click on the box in front of the file, right, you can move it to a different voicemail box, i.e. it went to the wrong person, or you can change its status. Right, you can mark it as, you can keep it as new, listened, mark it for deletion, or just outright delete it. Webhooks, this is basically using APIs to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in this, actually our sales team has the information on webhooks. You can also see examples of what we have done with webhooks via at the website called developer.virtualpbx.com. But basically, if it's enabled, you just need to fill out what you want it to do. Basically, you click on a new webhook, give it a name, and essentially fill all of this out. And then lastly, the user portal. Now, each user has their own user portal. So meaning as an admin, I can only go to my own user portal. I can't get to anyone else's. That doesn't really matter as an admin because you can always get to like anyone's voicemail box, right? As a user, same information, right? The date, the time, the phone number it came from, phone number it came to, duration, they can listen to it, they can download it, right? And they can change the status. They cannot move it to another voicemail box. Call history, I can change the date range, but I can see my inbound and outbound calls. Likewise, a user can see their fax history. So if we go back here, right, we can see I sent a fax out. The contact list, this is all your Dash information, right? Your users, your groups, etc. This is not something your standard users can add to, right? So your sales team would not be able to add their client list to this. Conference, this is your conference tab. So this is where, over here on the right, kind of hard to see, but this is where your users can update their moderator pin and their participant pin numbers for their conferencing. Right, then do they want people when they join muted? Do they want people to join deafened? And then do they want to have entry and exit tones being played as people come and go? And then they would click save. While they're in a conference, up here they can invite other Dash users, right, other people in the account to a conference. Then they can lock a conference. You can mute everybody, you can unmute everybody, and then you can end the conference call. When you're also in a conference for individual participants, right, you can mute a specific person as well as kick a specific person. And then settings and devices, this is where the users would set up their own call forwarding. They would click enable call forwarding, put +1 area code and phone number, and then choose their options and click save. And again, this phone number should not already be on the user. And they can also see the status of their phones. All right, and that is everything. Didn't see any questions come through, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I'm not quite sure why it took quite so long. So I'll have to tighten this up and get it closer to an hour and a half in the future. I'll be here again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and thank you for your time today.